the principle of real is that it is real through and through, meaning not real at its level, but at a different level it is not. It is real at any level. This is why we see that any Indian in Torah, the Rebbe always points out that any Indian in Torah, even the highest in Chassidus, or the most intricate people, sometimes in explaining a post, explaining a Rashi, that seems like a little bit involved, way beyond, outside of the simple scope. But everything in Torah has to have a means to express it, the poem. It has to have some factual implications. In the Gemara, when there are a dispute regarding a certain Indian, what is the reason? The Mishnah says, and if we're going to get in Kedushin, Mishnah says that if somebody, a shliach, brings a get, a divorce papers, from outside of Eretz Yisrael to Beis in Eretz Yisrael, and he wants to give it to the woman, the din is that a shliach can also deliver it. So he has to testify in front of the bezin, before the nichter, before the nechtam, that this shtar, this get, was written in my presence. I saw it being written, I saw it being signed. And there are two opinions in the Gemara as to the reason why it has to be. Okay, so Rava says one reason, Rava says another reason. Before anything, the Gemara says, what's the difference? Tell me what's the difference. I want to know the reason. No, everything, if there is a difference in reason, it has to ultimately reflect itself in a practical difference. This is an Indian that the Rambam says in Shmeina Prokim. There's a famous section that is called, it's referred to as Shmeina Prokim lo Rambam. This is 8 chapters of the Rambam's Hagdoma to Pirkei Avos. And there he deals with all kinds of things. And one of the things that the Rambam says over there is that the Mishnayos, we see the Mishnah is Baruch HaKodesh. Definitely Baruch HaKodesh, you can see it, the Rambam says. How can you see it? Because you see that if there is a halach, and then there is the slightest, ever so slight, a change in circumstance, and already the halacha changes. Every circumstance is reflected already in the halacha. If it's like this, if it's like this. If you learn the Shulchan Aruch, you learn the Alter Shulchan Aruch, you say has halacha. Now what's the next sif after that? Bamed Dvarim Amurim. And the next sif after that, Bamed Dvarim Amurim. And the next sif after that, Bamed Dvarim Amurim. Every change, every nuance changes already the halacha. Because this is not a true Indian. But it's true through and through.
Everywhere.
Everywhere it has to be reflected all. So, this is the same Indian. When you say that there is Eir Ein Sof, Lifnei HaTzimtzum. If this is Eir Ein Sof, that Eir Ein Sof has to have both the Ein Sof and also the Gvul, as we're going to learn later. It has to have the Gvul also, because otherwise it's true only in one circumstance, it's true only in what set of circumstances, not true in another. That's not true through and through, all the way down. Yeah. Okay. We started the singing. I went a little quicker because I couldn't discuss it very much. So the Rebbe pointed out that this singing that it says in Kisvei Arizal, that the time, the Sibah for the creation is Legalish Shleimus Kechesed Yisborich, which means that it sounds like the creation complements, make the Koyach Shalom, and the Rebbe said that cannot be the real reason, a mitzvah reason. It's true that through creation it is expressed much more than before, but not that the Koyach was lacking a Shleimus and saying that it must be, otherwise the Koyach is not Shleim. Then he says, similarly, what the Zohar says, begin the Ishtem Meidun Lei, so that he will be known, is also cannot be the ultimate reason. And one of the things that he says is simply this. We see that the creation was, there are higher worlds, Elam was in Soif and Elam Ha'atzilus, and then there was Biyah. So if you say that the reason is from the begin the Ishtem Meidun Lei, how can a reason of begin the Ishtem Meidun Lei bring about the creation of Biyah? If begin the Ishtem Meidun Lei means that he should be known, he is not known in Biyah, he is known in Atzilus, not known in Biyah. So how can that reason bring about the creation of Biyah? I just want to finish the introduction. So then the Rebbe says, basically, what do you mean he is not known in Biyah? He is known in Biyah. We know about him. So the Rebbe is going to discuss now, that's when we're in the middle, the difference between knowing and known. When you know about something, that doesn't mean that you know the something. And this is what we're going to discuss now. Yes?
No, that answered my question.
Okay.
So Mahus would be the knowing him, and Atzmu, and the Tios would be of knowing of him.
Right. This is what he's going to explain. So he introduced the singing. I'm sorry, yeah?
Something that came to my mind. We said earlier that Echad means many that are one, and Yachid means one, that is one. So why in Shema do we not say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Yachid instead of Hashem Echad? And why is it called Yachidus if there's more than one? Just, is that a...
This Achdus. Don't call it Yachidus. Achdus.
Achdus.
Achdus. From the word Echad.
Okay.
Not Yachid.
Okay, so Shema Yisrael.
We say in Baruch Shem, we say Melech Yochid Cheiho Ilamim.
Yeah.
Yochid, he is himself Yochid. But then, in order to be Cheiho Ilamim, he came down to be a Melech. This is already descent. From Yochid there is there's no world. But in order to be Cheiho Ilamim, he became a Melech. What do we say when we explain Adonai Olam? Adonai Olam Hashem Mala B'Torem Kol Yitzur Nivra. But he was a Mala B'Torem Kol Yitzur Nivra. But that's unknown. La'eis Naso L'Cheftzekoi, when everything was created by his will, then Melech Shmoniko, then he is called Melech.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it is in from Echad.
Mm-hmm.
But when he is Yochid, he's also a Melech, but it's not the same meaning of Melech.
Okay.
You're saying she reigned, but it wasn't called Melech.
Wasn't called Melech. The Inyan, but you ask this question, why we say Hashem Echad and Hashem Yochid, which is a question that is in fact directly discussed in Chassidus. Okay, so I'm not going into it. I can give you some addresses, you can take a look. But this is an Inyan that is directly asking Chris, why we say Hashem Echad, not Hashem Yochid. Yochid is higher than Echad. All right. I know we will have to, but I want to start from I'm going to start, we ended on the line that begins Horuchnius, and I'm going to actually go back and quickly go through from the line that begins V'hainu Gili Hakav. There's 4 lines before that. So there is Gili Hakav in Be'elam Ein Sof, Lifnei Hatzilus, V'gam Be'elam Hatzilus. So to Neil Machilas, this will be more clearly discussed a little bit later, immediately after his thoughts. Be'elam Machilas, V'yoidim u'masigim, they know and they are masig, they actually comprehend Bechinas Mahus Alakus Mamash, the Mahus Valakus. And we will discuss in a minute Mahus versus what is not in the Ilm Biyah. Avo Be'elam is Biyah, but in the worlds in Biyah, Harei ha'oir mustor v'ne'elam. The oir of Elokus is contained and concealed. Shein, which means shein a meir begil. It does not shine forth in a revealed way. V'chol ha'yidiyah v'hasog. All that there is in terms of yidiyah of hasog, of knowledge and comprehension. Gam be'elam es biyah ruchniyim. Even in Olam es biyah itself, the Olam biyah itself, there is the higher level of Olam es biyah, the Olam biyah ruchniyim. Hu bivchinas hametzius delakus. It is only in that which can be defined as metzius delakus, loy bivchinas mahusay mamash. Not in Bechinas Mahus. Here all of a sudden we're talking about Bechinas. Bechinas Metzias Elkus, Bechinas Mahus. What is the Bechinas Metzias Elkus? Elkus, in effect, in truth, does not have a Metzias. What is a metzius? We already discussed it, I think, maybe in the general class. We discussed it. Metzius means that its content and its representation, its meaning, and its presence are not one and the same thing. There is its presence, it exists, and then you guys a question, what is it that exists? Like we pointed out, you have a book. That's the Metzius. What's in this book? You remember this discussion, right?
Doesn't also imply boundaries?
Yeah, well, this is...
I mean,
Metzius,
Metzius
must have boundaries.
So, I mean, besides the fact that you're saying that there's existence and the purpose or the content, so, I mean, in a more general level, then it isn't just the fact that it's a definition at all you can't apply? Because Metzius means like this and not that, right?
Yes. You can define Metzius from every angle. I'm pointing out the so to speak, the central point of what we mean by Metzius. That's absolutely right. That in order that it should be a Metzius, it has to have boundaries. And therefore, anything that is in a state of Metzius, even its content has to be limited. Because otherwise, how can it be contained in Metzius? If it's represented by Metzius, then its content itself must also be limited. You can have a finite keli contain an infinite oir. When we see, that's what we see this points out, when we see a finite keli contain an infinite oir, then we know that the koyach of this relationship, to relate this keli with the oir, is not in the keli, it's a different koyach. Where do we have an example of this?
Body and neshama.
Body, neshama, luchis, the orm. And then there's a simple union that Chassidus always points out. There is the kayomim beish, the heavenly bodies that kayomim beish that exist in as the individual entity, like the sun and the moon. The moon, the moon is a cold body, but the sun is burning away. However large it is, it's still a measurable size. And yet, it has infinite koyach. And why do we see that it's infinite koyach? Not in terms of that it extends indefinitely. It's not true. The light of the sun does not extend indefinitely. It extends very far, but as it extends further and further, it becomes less and less. There's no question about it. So it's not an infinite koyach in the sense that distance doesn't matter. Absolutely, it does matter. Which tells us that the sun is a finite entity. And yet, it does not diminish. So how can you have a non-diminishing koyach that is limited? So therefore we say, clearly, there is a koyach behind it that is infinite, but we don't see it. The sun itself attests to the presence of a lakus, which is an infinite koyach. It attests to the fact that the Rebbe creates it, rejuvenates it every day, all the time. Because if it were not rejuvenated all the time, then you should be able to see it should be diminishing as time goes on. So, coming back to this thing. Bechinas metzius olakus and bechinas mahus olakus. We're still getting into it. We just want to translate the words. And that's why he says bechinas metzius. Because in effect, olakus is truth in itself. And therefore, olakus is not dependent on metzius. Anything that is not olakus needs metzius. It needs a place. It needs a definitive presence in order to express itself. But something that is true in itself does not need a definitive presence to express itself. It doesn't have a metzius. One illustration for this within our scope of orientation is logical svara. Logic. Something that's logical, something that's reasonable. The truth is, before I give you the example, the truth is we have to understand that everything, absolutely everything in the world was created from nothingness. Which means that every piece of logic, anything that is reasonable and logical in the world as we know it, is only logical because of the way that the world was created. In the context of the world that the world was created, this is later. Definitely the Rebbe could have created the world where the logic would have been totally different. So therefore it's not an absolute. But within our context we could nevertheless use this as an illustration of something that is true in itself and does not need a metzius. 2 times 2 equals 4. That's a logical thing. Does it exist any place? Does this exist? Does this need a place to exist? Where is this true?
In your mind.
Where is this true? Here?
Not tangible.
It's not. It doesn't have a metzius. It's true in and of itself. It's not true because it has a place in the world. It can express itself. It's true in and of itself. As I said, we have to understand this is all in context, in the worldly context. But But we should understand the Indian that something that does not need a mitzvah in order to be. So
you're saying that, and so if you take two sticks and another two sticks and put it together and you see it's four, it's only let's say it's a proof for that it's true. It's not that it's place for it because
yeah, that's only a proof.
Right.
That's only a proof. If you remember one time, I told you the story of this little doggy that was able to do mathematical arithmetic questions.
Yeah.
We were talking. So that dog didn't know the difference between 2 and 4.
Right.
The dog knew he counted 2, and then he counted another 2, and therefore he has 4. But a human being knows the difference between 2 and 4. So when you ask him, how much is 2 times 2? It's a logical question. He understands the concept. He relates to it as a concept, not just as a fact. And this is why he can make this concept extremely intricate. He can go on, so to speak, in sophisticated mathematics because of this fact that
it's
he
real
is.
existence by him.
Huh?
It's real existence by him. The 2 and 2, 4. It's a question, and he can use it. Dog cannot use this equation.
Yeah, but even the idea itself is real.
Right.
But I'm saying that this idea does not exist per se.
Right. It doesn't have a.
Doesn't have a mitzvahs. It's not dependent on mitzvahs. It just happens to be a truth within the general context of the world. So when we say over here that the ideal, the hasog, in Ilmus Biyah, even the Ilmus Haruchni, is only bebchinas hametzius delakus, is in the bechinas hametzius, as we're going to explain. So he says bechinas metzius, not that there is a metzius per se in the lakus. There is no metzius in the lakus, because the lakus is not dependent on metzius to be. But there is what's called bechinas hametzius. Bechinas means, generally speaking, the word bechinas means in a manner of speech, if you wish. In other words, it can test for it. In other words, in our orientation, we would call it metzius, so to speak, but not the actual Indian. So they only have a hasoga in bechinas hametzius dolakus, loy bechinas mahusay mamash. They don't have a comprehension in the union of mahusay mamash. In the bechina of mahusay mamash. What is this? We're going to see now.
And the same thing, we can see that there's no mahus either. So we're saying the bechinas. It's also, so to speak, mahus.
Right. V'his havusam hu be'efun zed dafko. V'his havusam, they are coming into being of Oimas Biyah, is be'efun zed dafko, was specifically and intentionally made in this manner. Shalo yizgale v'lo yurgash bohem ha'oir ha'leki mamsh. That the oir ha'leki, the oir ha'leki itself should not be revealed and should not be felt in them. Sharidei zeh nasu b'bchinas yesh. Because of the absence of the oir ha'leki, they became b'chinas yesh. Now we should be able to understand what that means. And of course, this is true in and of itself, absolute truth. Absolute truth is not a mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah. It's not b'chinas yesh. Because on the Ilmus Biyah there is the absence of this, and they shouldn't feel the inyan holocaust. So therefore, what are they? What is their recognition of themselves? Nothing. I'm here. That's his first recognition of himself. Linie von Yesh. Was mean Bechinas Yesh? Before I know who I am, I know first that I am. Mean Bechinas Yesh. And if I did not know that I am, then I couldn't be speaking about who I am. There's nobody to speak about. The Olam Ha'atzilus. Now he explains what we just now finished saying. He's saying that the Olam Ha'atzilus, v'kol shekein ha'olam shelamayla me'atzilus, surely even the higher worlds, oifon his havusam, the manner of their coming into being, hu sheyoir bahem ha'oir begilui. Let me just kind of explain this, I could say maybe peculiar expression. Oifen is avusam. In the Elam Hasbiyah it says Ba'ifan, in the Ukri, Ba'ifan is Dafka, and the Imatzil is Oifen is avusam. The point that is made by saying this Oifen is avusam is to explain a very simple thing. We should not misunderstand and think that the Olam is aliening. You know what I'm going to say?
Yeah, that they are created. That they are. It's only the orphan is avusam. It's so to say in the way they made, because they're not really made.
No. What I want to say is the following. You may think that the Olam is Yonim, they really comprehend, they have a Hasoga and idea and the Mehuso Lakus because of their own smarts. They are so smart that they understand the Lakus. This is an important thing to understand. That the reason that they understand the Lakus is because that's the way, because the Lakus is Begila. That's how they were created, to have a Lakus Begila. This is what the Rebbe explains, and we know that a Rebbe, a tzaddik, and he knows what's doing Lamaila and Lamato, and he has Ruach HaKodesh, and he has the Nevi'as with all Zachen. It's not because he's so smart, but because this is how he was made. This is a different kind of a neshama. And therefore this whole Kedusha, it truly representative of a Lakus, because this is what was made in this Mitzias. It's a creation all unto itself. A Rebbe. A tzaddik, it's a separate creation. It's not the same Mitzias as everyone else.
That's why.
Yeah, there's a pasuk that we say every Shabbos. No, that we don't say that. It's mentioned in allusion to it. And find a pasuk that says, the pasuk says, Asher Oso, Hashem, Asher Oso, es Moshe ve'Aaron ve'Shmuel. Hashem who made Moshe and Aaron and Shmuel. That's what he made Moshe and Aaron and Shmuel. He made everything. Because Moshe and Aaron and Shmuel, this is a creation all unto itself. You say, Moshe is a son of Amram, and Shmuel is also had a mother and a father. Is this a normal thing? No, Hashem also. It's an Asiyah. This is how they were made. That in Atzilus there should be Gilui Elokus.
Why would you think that the perception of the Elamais, Atzilus and the Malam Atzilus, I mean, why would you think that they have anything mitzad atma? It's like saying like the sun shines on its own. The sun has the power to shine because of its own. I mean, it seems like, well, how could you ever come to that conclusion that anything they have is due to their own?
Because this is how we think of ourselves. How do you think, until you realize that there's a neshama, and then you have the koiches hanefesh to see and to understand and to comprehend and to absorb, you think you find out on your own how by touch, so you know there's a table. So you found out.
You project your own.
You project your own
self into that world.
That's right. This is normal. I mean, when you start talking in terms of higher and lower, you judge it with your own keli. So oifen is havusam hu, the way that they were created, the manner in which they were created is in the manner in their coming into being. Hu sheyoir bohem ha'oir begil. It is that the oir should shine through them, begilui, in the fullest sense of comprehension, of realization. V'yurgash bohem ha'oir. And the oil should be felt within them. And since that the oil is felt within them, and the oil, this is the truth of Elokus, and therefore the oil does not need a mitzias. Therefore, therefore their mitzias is not bebechinas mitzias yesh, ki'im bebechinas Elokus. What gives them their mitzias?
Here goes.
The inner holocaust that's in them. In other words, why are they present? Because they are true. Because they represent a truth. A godly truth. That's why they are present. Not because they have they occupy space. They have a presence, an existence. Like the Gashmias.
So what's the difference between them, these entities, whatever they are, and the light itself? The oil, and they made in Bechinas Elokus. Well, if they both are not Mitzius, are not Yesh, right? Or
yeah, there is nevertheless there are differences. In every oilam there is the oil itself, and there is that which is created by the Seir. Like in oilam ha'atzilus, there's the oil. In oilam ha'atzilus, there's the keli. In oilam ha'atzilus, there are malachim. There are malachim in oilam ha'atzilus, which are creations of oilam ha'atzilus, and they have the full comprehension of the oil. But the oil itself is a different level of bittul, different level of yichud with the lakus than the creations of within that oil. And this is what he says. Oifen is havusam. This is how they were created. That there is a gilui that the oil is begilui, and the inyan that the oil is begilui means that every mitzias, everything that is in there, does not need any further substantiation, any reason for being, but for the fact that it represents a locus. It represents a inyan elokei. Therefore, that itself justifies and substantiates its presence. This would be the same in our world as if to say, what is this book doing over here? Hashem wants it here. Would that be an answer?
No.
Why not?
Because we don't operate this way.
Because we don't operate this way. Because we don't see the oil key that says this has to be there. No, there is a human decision for it to be here. Somebody must have put it down, whatever. But if you would see that this is the Ratzon key, you wouldn't ask why it's there.
Because you cannot question on Rotzen.
Not that question of question. That itself is the answer.
Right, exactly. So you will see it through.
You would see it beyond this reason. The reason this book is here is in order that I should be able to give a mushal for this evening, for this with this book. You know, this is how things are.
Very perceptive of you.
So that's the difference between a lakus and world. A lakus is that which is true in itself. Does not beg for a question, why is it here? Why is 2 times 2 equal to 4? In our orientation. It's a stupid question. If you understand that 2 times 2 equals to 4, you would not ask the question why it is. It doesn't apply. The question doesn't fit. So when we say that this is true because of a lakus, then the whole question of why doesn't apply. There's a story from the Ramban. You know the Ramban. So the Ramban had a Talmud of the Ramban, who was passing away, prematurely. He was a young man, he was passing away. So the Ramban, he came to see him, and he said to him that I want you to promise me that when you go up Lamaila, you should go and confront and ask, why is it that he didn't have so much trust? And then you should come back and give me an answer. So the Talmud promised him. Even this is not the kid stuff, the Ramban talking to his Talmud. So they promised that he would do that. He passed away. And then weeks passed and didn't come back to the Ramban. And sometime, quite a good duration afterwards, he came back to the Ramban for whatever reason. And the Ramban asked him, how come I made you promise, how come you didn't come back and tell me the answer? So he said, I'll tell you the truth. When I came up Lamaila, and I saw the truth, I said, I was embarrassed to ask the question. So I couldn't come back to you with the answer. I couldn't ask the question.
The same way it'd be stupid to ask why is 2 times 2.
No.
So why by Aslan, that we
Why?
Why would daven then and other things? should believe that everything is true. So whatever just
And davening is also part of the truth.
part of the truth is that here we should daven.
Absolutely. Not a here for the.
No, I said here we should daven.
Here we should daven, and the davening is what brings this whole truth about. There's, if you want to begin to even delve into this, there's so much that we can speak of, and so much that we can even begin to speak about. וציוסם לאי בבחינס מציאוס יש. קיים בבחינס אלוקוס. Their metius is not bibchinas yesh. Again, bibchinas yesh. They don't attest for yesh. They don't represent first a presence and then what they are. Kim bibchinas elokus. Again, it's bibchinas elokus. This is not the oir eliki itself, but because the oir eliki is begilui. Therefore, they do not need a mitzias.
You cannot have it.
They cannot have. They don't need a mitzias. The reason they don't have is because they don't need.
They themselves don't need.
They need a mitzias.
Because they also truth.
Yeah, because they see the truth. They are margish the oir leki that creates them. And therefore, their presence, they exist, but their existence is on the level of truth, on the level of elokus, bebchinas elokus.
It's like elokus does not need any mitzius, any base to exist, any mitzius, because it's true in itself.
Right. And then we're saying that there is oilamus.
Right.
The oilamus are creations.
Okay.
If they're creations, so then by definition they should be a mitzias. So we say no.
Because it's still elokus.
Because elokus is begilu in them. They recognize the inyan eleki, and therefore they're not bebchinas mitzias.
I don't understand. How come just simple recognition, whatever they recognize, make them true so much that they don't need to be mitzias? You're saying that if we, let's say, hypothetically, would recognize elokus, mahus elokus, we also will be like them?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because just the same recognition makes them.
That's right.
Well, there.
Is there a difference between recognition and begilui? It's begilui in them. It's begilui in them, and they recognize that, and that's.
This is what makes them in a presence, bebchinas elokus, not bebchinas mitzias.
Never heard of such a thing.
Okay, all right. I give you one first illustration of this. That when a Malach came to Avram Avinu and he said, "Bi nishbaiti," right? "Bi nishbaiti," and the Malach is speaking, saying, "Bi nishbaiti," because when the Malach is a shliach, he is not a separate mitzias. What does it mean he's not a separate mitzias? He's a malach. He's a creation. And he has a shlichus to do. When he finishes the shlichus, he has to go back. What do you mean he's not a mitzias? But because at the time during the moment that he's a shliach, he is completely bottled to the Mashalleach. And therefore when he speaks, he's the Rebbe himself speaking. Because at that time he's completely bottled. Once he finishes the shlichus, then he goes back to being a malach. Being mitzias what he is. This is because a malach is not in Atzilus, a malach is in Biyah.
Okay, so you're saying, right.
Let me put it into perspective, right? Like we said before, the Eibusher wants this. Everything exists because Hashem wants it. But, and even if we recognize this truth, we recognize this truth as a secondary. First I exist, and then you say, why do I exist? Because Hashem wants. But what if I, to start with, wouldn't even think in terms of I exist? There's complete recognition, completely in the fact that there is only the fact that Hashem wants. So even though Hashem wants a mitzvah, but that mitzvah itself is a non-entity as a mitzvah. It represents exclusively the Ratzon Hashem. And if it represents Ratzon Hashem, then its presence is based entirely on the Lakus, not the mitzvah. This is what he says over here, these words. Mitziyusam, I'm taking it back to the previous line. Mitziyusam lo yiyah bivchinas mitziyus yesh kiyim bivchinas alakus. They are a mitziyus. But what kind of mitziyus are they?
Hashem wants them.
Right. They're only mitzad them, mitzad alakus. That's what makes them a mitziyus.
They don't have any idea that they are mitzvahs at all.
Mitzad atzmum, they're not
They don't have any.
They are a mitziyus, but a mitziyus representing a alakus.
But they don't recognize themselves as a mitzvahs.
They do recognize themselves as mitzvahs, but what kind of mitzvahs is it?
Oh, it's godly.
Mitzvahs of alakus. That I am here because Hashem wants me to be here. Exclusively. This is representing alakus, not representing his own presence, his own existence. We spoke about something similar. I mean, the idea itself. We spoke about at the lowest in Pashat Eloi Magashmi. If you remember when we spoke about Seichel Anushi. Seichel Anushi is a level of perception, a level of relating to the world at the human level. Which means that you ignored completely the fact that this is a Gashmistic world. What do you pay attention to? What is its human value? That's what you pay attention to. From a Gashmistic perception, the sun is a ball of fire. From a Gashmistic perception, the sun circles on the earth, or the earth circles on itself, immaterial. The point is that neither the earth nor the sun are intending to make day and night. Day and night is an inadvertent result of their rotation around each other. That's from Gashmistic perception. But what is the human perception? Even before we get to the godly perception, what's the human perception? Human perception is that there is day and night. And that's what I'm relating to. Not to the Gashmi of what makes day and night. If I think as day and night, that's what counts. That's what I'm living in. The world I'm living in is that there is day and night, not that there is earth rotating around its axis. So what happens to the Gashmi? It's non-existent. Why? Because there is a truer aspect here. The truer aspect is that there is day and night. The Gashmi thing is not true in itself. What's the purpose of it? What does it mean? There's a truer aspect. The truer aspect is that it's day and night. Everything else is secondary completely. I don't even relate to it. Has anybody ever woken up in the morning and said, "Oh, the earth has rotated"?
Maybe astronauts.
Right? What does it mean? It's day. Is it correct? And this is what we discussed the other day. You asked me the question. That is the real truth in which we live. And this real truth is much, much closer to the real truth than to saying the earth is rotating. Because the real purpose of this whole rotation is for that. And even higher than that. This is the pshat, that the Metzius is not b'bchinas yesh, ki b'bchinas elokus. B'bchinas yesh would be, first of all, the earth is rotating. That's the yesh. What is the result of it, and what purpose, and what happens? Okay, that's already a ruchnis de keinyan. That's the way you look at it. But what is concretely happening, that's the Metzius. We say just the opposite. In Atzilus, it is there is the perception is mamash of Elokus itself, b'bchinas Elokus. It's a true perception of the truth. Kumei hakelim da Atzilus. As to illustrate, for an example, the kelim of Atzilus and kelim of Atzilus are kelim, are creations. This is not even the oir. The word kelim will get into in more involved. We'll have to, in Mitzvah Shem, discuss kelim and oir and all that. But just what is keli denote? What does keli mean? Keli means there is oir and keli. Oir is the message, if you can matter of speech, is the message. Keli is the means by which the message is expressed. Like we have the thought, the concept, and we have the oises, the words, or the phraseology. These are the kelim that carry the message, carry the oir. So these kelim unite with the oil. They come, they express the oil correctly, which means they come right out of the oil itself. But still, this is the means, whereas this is the means by which it is carried, whereas the oil is what is being carried. When you explain a thought to someone and you use words, do you want him to understand your words or the thought behind the words? You want him to understand the thought? This is why the expression is a kop kemen nit aruf stellen. Did you ever hear that expression?
A cup what?
A kop kemen nit aruf stellen.
You cannot jump over your head?
No.
I've heard it. I forgot the text of it. I have definitely heard it.
You cannot put a head on somebody's shoulders. In other words, you can explain to someone who has a head. But if he doesn't have a head, you can't put a head on his shoulders. What does it mean? This is not an insult. What does it mean? It means that all explaining, even though you give him the whole thing, but you're not really giving it to him. You're presenting it to him so that he will take these words, thinking to them, and he will find this thought within his own mind. That's how you understand things. You don't make somebody understand. You make him become aware of this thought. Through your words. If he thinks into your words, he becomes aware of his thoughts, and then he finds in his mind, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. But he has to find the inyan in his own mind. If it were possible to give him the thought in a keli, give it to him. He got it. That's not what happens. Why? Because the kelim only carry the oil, they're not the oil itself. Because the keli itself, if you tell him a sentence, he can spit the sentence right back to you. He can tell you right back. So why? What's so difficult about transmitting seichel? The answer is because he didn't understand it. Doesn't mean that he has seichel. He only has the words, not the seichel. Like we spoke yesterday about the koich hatzemeach. The koich hatzemeach is in the earth. You can only arouse it through a certain means. But if there was no koich hatzemeach in the earth, nothing would help. That's what kelim. So he says kelim is a means for carrying the oil. Even though this is a kelim, that's but they're kelim shein alakus mamash. The kelim themselves are alakus mamash u'miyochodim beho'oir. They unite with the oil, as we know, as it says, the year v'garmei yechad. Ihu v'garmei yechad. He, meaning the oil, and the keli is one thing. Or ihu, maybe even higher than the oil, which we may discuss. The point is that even though it's a keli, it's also a lukus. It's not a separate thing. The keli itself is also not a mitzias. Like we say, words, sounds. A sound can exist and contain a seichel, and can be just a sound.
It proves that it's mitzvah by itself.
It's not mitzvah by itself.
But
The king, no, it's not. It's impossible. The keli carries the oil, and it's part of the oil.
Also, if you look at it, you won't be able to say what's the difference. It's one entity.
Right.
Keli and oil all together. It's not like, right?
Well, no, the oil is even higher than the keli, but you would not be able to say that the keli can exist without the oil. What's a mitzvah by itself.
Okay.
However that is, but the oil is mislabish in the keli separately or not, the point which is made, I mean, clearly we do not understand kelim datzilus. What he's saying is that that in oilam atzilus the oil is begilui. That means the keli also has begilui the oil, to the point where the keli itself is also lukus. Not only the oil, but the keli itself. In brief, it's a little late. Oil. We spoke about keli. What is oil? One of the elements of oil, one of the qualities of oil, for which it is called oil, is that oil emanates from a source, from a mo'er. And in that respect, that it emanates from the source, it is not a separate mitzias. It doesn't need a mitzias, because the moir is shining it. Oil is always representing the moir, always coming from a source. Which is why, like we say the moshel, that the sun is shining, it can be shining on a piece of gold, and it can be shining on dirt. Does the oil of the sun become dirty or become golden? Is it affected any which way? It's not. Why? because the oil does not fall onto the place that it is shining on. It is always connected to its source. The oil is representative of its source. That's what oil is. So oil is not a mitzvah by itself, but for representing the moyer. The keli is that part which captures the oil and represents a mitzvah. So that's what he's saying, that even the kelim and atzilus are also lukus. The oil, of course, the oil, because the oil is l'chatchila connected to the source, representing the ihu, the real source, the higher than atzilus, the etzem, the keser. But even the kelim are also lukus. Why? Because in atzilus there is the gilui lukus, and everything there is begilui. Because oifen is havusam, this is the way these worlds were created, that things should be begilui. What the mahus is, that should be begilui. As we're going to see in contrast to it was beyond, that everything was created so that the mahus will not be begilui, will be hela. Which we'll discuss in this show.
Stop at Amish. You didn't say Mechudim. Oh no,
okay, Gama Yechad.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's a Shir Klali because
it's Pesach Sheni.
I wanted to just ask you about this real quick, because we kept saying that they recognize this, that the Elokus. But the statement that he made, that Oifen Hisavusam, it negates this whole expression they recognize. It's not a matter of their recognition. That shows that it's something mitzad atzma, that because of their recognition, that's why they're not a mitzias. They're not a mitzias because that's the way they're created. It has nothing to do with a recognition on their behalf.
No, there is recognition, but recognition is not because of themselves, but because this is how the world was created. Sheyoyer b'hem ha'oyer begilui. What is Eifen is Havusam? Eifen is Havusam who sheyoyer b'hem ha'oyer begilui. They were created in this manner, that the oil should be shining through them begilui. V'yurgas b'hem ha'oyer, and they should feel the oil. So even though they exist, but they feel the oil that creates them. Not like us, that we live. The neshama gives life to the goof, but we don't feel the neshama. All we feel is the goof.